Hello, students. Welcome to today's class. Today we will be learning a new topic together. But before we begin, I want to show you a few pictures. I want you to look at the pictures carefully and then answer the question. So this is the first picture. Can you identify the movie from which this picture is taken? Yes, this movie is The Life of Pi. Now let's look at the second picture. Which movie is this picture from? It's from Finding Nemo. Very good. Now let's look at the third picture. Which movie is this picture taken from? It's taken from Pirates of the Caribbean. Very good. And let's look at the last picture. And this picture is taken from the movie Sinbad the Sailor. Now, students, we have looked at pictures from 4 different movies. Now, can you tell me what is common from all 4 of these movies? What is a common factor? What links them together? I hope you've guessed it right. The common factor linking all of these movies together is that they all take place in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the sea, right? Life of Pi takes place in the middle of the ocean. They're drifting alone on the boat. And then Pirates of the Caribbean is where they are adventuring on the high seas. They're pirates and they're trying to loot for treasure. And then Finding Nemo, of course, takes place under the sea, but it's still related to the sea and having an adventure. And lastly, Sinbad the Sailor, very similar to Pirates of the Caribbean, is about having an adventure on the open seas while looking for gold. So students, the reason we've looked at all of these movies is because today we'll be continuing to read this unit called Chasing the Sea Monster. And actually in today, what we're going to be reading, there's going to be a lot of adventures happening, right? And I want you to be able to imagine the adventures, which is why I showed you the pictures from the movies in the beginning of the lesson. Okay, students. So now when we watch a new episode of our favorite show, how does it begin? It begins with a recap of the last episode. So even for today's lesson, we will start by trying to remember what we covered in the last lesson on this unit, right? So far in the story, what has happened? We have Professor Anorax. He is a main character. He is the narrator. And he is on a frigate or a little ship that is commanded by Commander Farragut, right? And then they are attacked by a mysterious sea monster. They don't know what this creature is, but this creature seems to be following them and trying to attack them. So after a sleepless night in which the sea monster did not make any movements to attack the ship, it disappeared for some time, but then it reappeared again. And the men on the ship are convinced that the sea monster is a whale. They think it's a whale or some kind of big sea animal, but they don't know what it actually is. So finally, Commander Farragut gives the men on the ship the order to attack the monster. So this is what we covered in the last lesson. And today we'll be reading onwards. So I want everyone to open the textbooks to page 45 and please read along with me. Okay. What a chase! No, I can't describe the excitement that shook my very being. Ned Land stayed at his post, harpoon in hand. Several times the animal let us approach. Then, just as the harpooner was about to strike, the cetacean would steal off swiftly. Commander Farragut then decided to use more direct methods. Bah, he said, so that animal is faster than the Abraham Lincoln? All right, mate, man the gun in the bow. Our forecastle cannon was immediately loaded and leveled. The cannoneer fired a shot, but his shell passed some feet above the cetacean, which stayed half a mile off. Over to somebody with better aim, the commander shouted, and $500 to the man who can pierce that infernal beast. Calm of eye, cool of feature, an old grey-bearded gunner, I can see him to this day, approached the cannon, put it in position, and took aim for a good while. There was a mighty explosion, mingled with cheers from the crew. The shell reached its target. It hit the animal, but bounced off its rounded surface and vanished into the sea 2 miles out. "Oh, drat," said the old gunner in his anger. "That monster must be covered with 6-inch armor plate." The hunt was on again. Hour after hour went by without the animal showing the least sign of weariness. However, it must be said that we too struggled on tirelessly. At 10:15 the evening, that electric light reappeared 3 miles away from the frigate, just as clear and intense as the night before. The monster seemed motionless. Was it asleep, perhaps, weary from its workday, just riding with the waves? This was our chance, and Commander Farragut decided to take full advantage of it. He gave his orders. The frigate approached without making a sound, stopped 2 cable lengths from the animal. A profound silence reigned over the deck. We were not 100 feet from the blazing core of light, whose glow grew stronger and dazzled the eyes. Just then, leaning over the forecastle railing, I saw Ned Land below me, brandishing his dreadful harpoon. Barely 20 feet separated him from the motionless animal. All at once his arm shot forward, and the harpoon was launched. I heard the weapon make a ringing sound as if it had hit some hard substance. The electric light suddenly went out, and 2 enormous waterspouts crashed onto the deck of the frigate, racing like a torrent from one end of the ship to the other, toppling crewmen, breaking spare masts and yard arms from their lashings. A hideous collision occurred, and thrown over the rail with no time to catch hold of it, I was hurled into the sea. All right, students, now you've heard me read the passage. Now the next thing I want you to do is read it for yourself. Now please remember, while reading the passage, look at your textbooks and underline every new word or phrase that you come across. If you don't understand any word or phrase, please underline it. All right. So I'm going to give you some 5 minutes to read the paragraph on your own. Okay, students, so I hope that you finished reading the paragraph. And the next thing that I want us to do together is try and visualize everything that we just read. This is very important when reading a new paragraph, that we must try to visualize everything that we have just read. So I'm going to be playing a video for you. I want you to observe the video. The video is actually taken from a movie called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is based on a book by the same name. And our paragraph of today is taken from that book. All right, so we're going to be watching a video from that movie. I want you to observe the different things that you can see in the video that are related to the paragraph that we just watched, that we just read. For example, there will be some light that you can see from the sea monster. You might even spot some of our characters, like Professor Anorax, Captain Farragut, and Ned Land. So keep an eye out for all of these characters, and let's watch the video.
I'm thinking she went down with all hands.
Poor devils. Not a living soul left. What could have caused such a fearsome explosion?
Black powder and worse, a whole shipload of the stuff.
What could have set it off, though? She must have struck something.
Or could it be that something struck the ship?
Huh? What do you mean, something struck her?
You mean in the monster, ain't you, mate?
Ah, it might be the monster, all right.
Monster! I've seen more monsters in my Aunt Gussie's fishbowl than on this whole cruise.
Sure, it's the monster. Right down on deck. I must insist, Professor, that you keep these fish stories to yourself.
On deck! Floating out to cross the larboard quarter!
There's the monster. Well, boy, beat to general quarters. Set compressors and prime. Look alive there! Get your engine fire, Carson. What's the matter?
She's showing us her heels, sir.
Well, hit her on the heels then. Fire!
Aye, sir. Run her off smartly.
We hit her, sir! She's turning!
She's turning around.
Mr. Lamb, enter the longboat with you. Stand by to lower away.
So students, after watching that video, let's try to answer this question. What did the crew of Abraham Lincoln believe they were chasing? What is it that they thought they were chasing, students? So actually, the crew of the Abraham Lincoln thought that they were chasing some kind of sea monster like a whale or a narwhal, which is a kind of whale. So they thought that they were chasing some kind of sea animal. But actually, what were they chasing? Can you guess? So actually, what the crew of the Abraham Lincoln was chasing was a submarine. Yes? I wonder how many of you guessed that. So students, as I mentioned earlier, the paragraph that we read from is taken from a book called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So let's find out a little bit more about this book before we go back to the paragraph. So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is a classic science fiction adventure novel by French writer Jules Verne. And the novel was originally published in 1869. It was actually published in serial form, as in every week one chapter was released. And this is how all the old books were released back then, is that they were released chapter by chapter in magazines or newspapers and so on. So this is how this book was written as well. It was written all the way back in 1869. How many years has it been since 1869? I'll let you figure that one out. Okay, so now let's look at a summary of the actual novel so we can understand exactly what is happening in the paragraph that we read today. So during the year 1866, this is what happens in the novel, all right? So during the year 1866, ships of various nationalities sight a mysterious sea monster, which it is later suggested might be a gigantic narwhal, which is a huge sea animal very similar to a whale. So the story begins with basically these weird sightings of mysterious sea creature. All right, and no one knows what it actually is. Now, the US government assembles an expedition in New York City to find and destroy the monster. And this is where our main character, Professor Aronnax, comes in. All right, so he is a French marine biologist, and the story is narrator. All right, and then he is in town at the time, so he receives a last-minute invitation to join the expedition, and he accepts. And then he is also joined by the Canadian whaler and master harpooner, Ned Land, who is the star of our show, right, students? He is the star of our paragraph because he's actually the one who takes down the monster at the end. So that's Ned Land. And he's also joined by a manservant, Conseil, who does not really feature in this paragraph. All right. So students, we have looked at what happens in the entire story. And now we understand exactly where in the story we have our paragraph. It's towards the beginning of the story when Professor Aronnax is asked to join the frigate to try and hunt down the sea monster. Okay, so now let's go back to the paragraph and let's look at some of the new words that we have seen in this paragraph. So I'm going to explain it paragraph by paragraph. All right. So the story begins with a 3-word exclamation, what a chase, right? And this phrase actually tells us what's going to happen in the following paragraphs. What is going to happen in the following paragraphs? There is going to be a chase. And not just a normal chase, a fantastic chase, right? And we get this feeling from the first 3 words of this paragraph. What a chase. No, I can't describe the excitement that shook my very being. Ned Land stayed at his post, harpoon in hand. And this is normal because Ned Land is a harpooner, right? Several times the animal let us approach. Then just as the harpooner was about to strike, the cetacean would steal off swiftly. So you see the word harpooner. Maybe it is new to some of us. So what does the word harpooner mean? I'm sure you can guess just looking at the context that harpooner actually means someone who launches a harpoon. And then the question arises, what is a harpoon? And there's a picture right over there for you to imagine. It's a kind of pronged instrument. It looks like a fork that we use to have dinner, but it's much bigger. And it is used to pierce any kind of thing that is attacking a ship. So that is a harpoon, and a harpooner is someone who launches the harpoon. All right. Then we also have the phrase steal off over there. The cetacean would steal off swiftly. What does steal off mean? The steal off actually means to move away, right? That's what it means. So when the cetacean would steal off swiftly, that means it moved away from the boat. Let's look at an example of the sentence that I've written there. I was waiting for a chance to steal off from our family dinner to go play video games with my brother. This is something that I tend to do a lot because I don't enjoy family dinners so much. But maybe you do, and maybe you do not want to steal off during your family dinners. So that is an example of how to use this phrase steal off in your sentence. Okay, let's continue reading. Commander Farragut then decided to use more direct methods. Bah, he said, so that animal is faster than the Abraham Lincoln. All right, mate, man the gun in the bow. So let's look at the word mate over here. What does the word mate mean? I'm sure if you've watched any kind of movies or read any books that are based on the sea or take place on a ship, then you're very familiar with this word. Mate actually means assistant, and it is used mostly in the context of being on a ship. All right, so the captain of the ship assigned some responsibilities to his mate. That's an example of a sentence in which you can use the word mate. All right, let's go to the next paragraph. Our forecastle cannon was immediately loaded and leveled. The cannoneer fired a shot, but his shell passed some feet above the cetacean, which stayed half a mile off. So again, what does the word cannoneer here mean? Again, I'm sure that you can guess that cannoneer is simply someone who launches a cannon. So this is what a cannon looks like. It shoots out a cannonball. It's very effective if it hits the target. But did it hit the target over here in this paragraph? No, it did not. So this is why after the cannoneer misses his target, Commander Farragut shouts over to somebody with better aim. All right, and then he offers a cash prize, some kind of incentive right? He feels like maybe his men are not motivated enough to take out the sea monster. So he offers $500 to the man who can pierce that infernal beast. So Commander Farragut seems to be quite frustrated by the fact that no one has been able to take it out yet. And now after he's offered this cash prize, we see calm of eye, cool of feature, an old gray-bearded gunner. I can see him to this day approach the cannon, put it in position, took aim for a good while. There was a mighty explosion mingled with cheers from the crew. So it seems like he got pretty close, right, students, to hitting the sea monster. What else do we know about this man? We don't know his name, but we know that he is old. He has a gray beard, which means that he is old, and he is a gunner. Probably someone who operates a gun on the ship, and not someone very experienced or high up on the rank. But still, he's very calm. He's very level-headed, and he is able to actually land his target. And from this, students, we can learn that people of all kinds of job descriptions have a lot of dignity, and they should all be respected because they all have talent and the ability to do a good job, right? So from this, we can actually learn about the dignity of labor and how everyone from all kinds of jobs have dignity and we should respect them. All right, let's go to the next paragraph. The shell reached its target. It hit the animal, but bounced off its rounded surface and vanished into the sea 2 miles out. "Oh, drat," said the old gunner in his anger. "That monster must be covered with 6-inch armor plate." Now let's look at the word "oh, drat." And we even saw the word "bah" earlier, right? Students, what are these words? What do they tell us about the people who say them, right? It tells us that they are actually very frustrated. They're very angry. And without them actually saying, "I'm very angry, I'm very frustrated," just by them saying, "oh, drat," we can understand what they are feeling. So words like this, "oh, drat," and "bah," they are called interjections. And they are words that express a strong feeling or emotion. Now, I'm sure that we are all very familiar with interjections. For example, what do we say when we see a beautiful, marvelous firework display? What is the word that comes out of our mouth? Wow, right? So this is an example of interjections that we use in our day-to-day lives. And every interjection expresses a different kind of emotion. So I want you to right now pause the video, think of at least 3 interjections that you use. You're not allowed to write down "wow," but you can write down any other 3 interjections that you use. And I want you to try and make sentences from them. So pause the video now, do this little exercise. Okay, now let's go on to the next paragraph. All right. So now we can see that the monster must be covered with 6-inch armor plate. So what does the word armor mean over here? Or rather, who wears an armor? I'm sure we're all aware of who wears an armor. Yes, it's actually knights who wear armors. Right? So an armor is a protective metal covering, and there you can see a picture of a knight wearing an armor. And what the armor actually does is protect the knight or protect anyone who wears it from any kind of danger or damage to their body. All right. So the hunt was on again. Hour after hour went by without the animal showing the least sign of weariness. However, it must be said that we too struggled on tirelessly. All right. So at 10:50 in the evening, that electric light reappeared 3 miles away from the frigate, just as clear and intense as the night before. The monster seemed motionless. Was it asleep perhaps, weary from its workday, just riding with the waves? This was our chance, and Commander Farragut decided to take full advantage of it. He gave his orders. Now, we don't actually see what orders Commander Farragut gave, but I'm sure we can guess. What order do you think he gave them? What did he actually say? He probably said, "All right, everyone, take your places. Let's attack this monster." Right? Or something like that. He must have given some kind of encouragement and some kind of order, right? So now the frigate approached without making a sound, stopped 2 cable lengths from the animal. A profound silence reigned over the deck. What does the word profound mean over here? A profound silence means it was an incredibly deep silence. It was very deep. So the word profound here actually means deep. Let's look at an example of how we can use this word. The priest's sermon was profound and made an impact on all of us. So when a sermon is profound, that means it had a lot of complexity. There was a lot that we could learn from it. All right. So we were not 100 feet from the blazing core of light, whose glow grew stronger and dazzled the eyes. Just then, leaning over the forecastle railing, I saw Ned Land below me, brandishing his dreadful harpoon. Barely 20 feet separated him from the motionless animal. All at once, his arm shot forward and the harpoon was launched. I heard the weapon make a ringing sound as if it had hit some hard substance. The electric light suddenly went out, and 2 enormous waterspouts crashed onto the deck of the frigate, racing like a torrent from one end of the ship to the other. So this all helps us to imagine what actually happened on the ship, right, students? All of these descriptive words like crashed onto the deck, racing like a torrent, all of these phrases helps us to understand what was happening, right? So what happened in this part is that Ned Land actually was able to hit the sea monster. And immediately what happened? The light suddenly went out, and then 2 enormous water spouts, basically they are long streams of water, they crash onto the deck, all right? And then a hideous collision occurred, and thrown over the rail with no time to catch hold of it, I was hurled into the sea. Who is it, students, who was hurled into the sea? Who was hurled into the sea? It is our narrator, right? Professor Anoraks. All right. So now you can see the 2 words that I have written in bold, enormous and hideous. I want you to find out the meanings of this word on your own and then make a sentence from them. Very simple words. I'm sure you already know the meaning of it. But if you don't, find out the meaning and then make your own sentence from the word. All right. So now let's look at these 2 sentences. It's time for a little grammar. Okay. So now let's look at the first sentence. The cannoneer fired a shot. Now, can you tell me which word in this sentence is a verb? Yes, verbs are basically action words. So which word in the sentence is a verb? Yes, it is actually fired. Fired is the verb in the sentence. Now, what is the object? If fired is the verb, then what is being fired? Very simple, a shot, right? So we have the verb fired and we have the object, which is a shot. And that follows, of course, that the subject is the cannoneer. Now let's look at the second sentence down there in the corner. The cetacean would steal off swiftly, right? So now what is the verb over here? What are the action words over here? There's 2 of them. We just learned the meaning of them. Yes, it is steal off. Steal off is the verb in this sentence. Does steal off have an object? The cetacean would steal off. Yes. Where was it stealing off? We don't know. So the object in the sentence is not present. So students, this brings us to a little grammar lesson, which is transitive and intransitive verbs. As we have seen in the previous slide, some verbs have an object. For example, fired has an object, which is a shot. And then some verbs don't have an object, like steal off. So verbs that have an object are called transitive verbs, and verbs that do not have an object are called intransitive verbs. Really simple. I'm sure we are all aware of what a verb and an object is. So it's really simple for us to be able to identify transitive and intransitive verbs. So let's look at some sentences, and I want you to answer the questions. All right. So Commander Farragut decided to use more direct methods. So what is the verb over here? The main verb in this sentence, the action verb is use, right? Use is the action verb in this sentence. So is there an object for this verb? What did Commander Farragut decide to use? He decided to use more direct methods, right? So the direct methods is the object, and that is present in the sentence. Therefore, the verb in this sentence is transitive. Very good. Now let's go to the next sentence. Over to somebody with better aim, the commander shouted. So what is the verb in this sentence? It is shouted. And does shouted have an object? Who did the commander shout to? We don't know. So the object in the sentence is not present. Therefore, shouted is an intransitive verb. All right, I hope that was clear. If it's not clear, please go back and watch it again. This is very simple. All right. So now let's end the sentence by doing end the subject by doing a little bit of recap. So what did we learn today? What did the crew of the ship think that they were hunting? Yes, what is it that they thought they were hunting? They thought they were hunting a whale or a narwhal, right? And what were they actually hunting? I'm going to let you answer that on your own. If you don't know the answer, please go back and watch the video again. Okay, how long did the chase take? Now, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go through the paragraph, underline every reference to time, and then come up with exactly how long it took for them to catch the sea monster. All right, there are a lot of references to time, students, so it won't be very difficult. So please try to find out how long did the chase take. Who finally took down the sea monster? This is a very easy question. We know the answer. The answer is Ned Land finally took down the sea monster. And lastly, what happened at the end of the passage, right? Something very dramatic happened at the end of the passage. What is it that happened? Yes, our narrator got hurled into the sea. Very good. All right. Now let's do a little activity. I want you to observe this picture carefully. This picture is of a ship and its different parts. All right. So I'm going to go through all the parts quickly. We have seen reference to all of them in the paragraph. All right. So now let's start at the top. So we have the fore, which is the front of the ship, and the aft, which is the back of the ship. Now, if you're looking towards the front of the ship, then we have the starboard, which is on your right, and the port, which is on your left. Right? So fore is in the front, aft is at the back, starboard on your right, and port on your left. Now let's look at the different parts of the ship. We have the bow, which is in the front of the ship, the mast, which is at the top, and the mast actually has the sail attached to it. All right. Then we have a yard, which is the stick that is across the mast. Then we have the forecastle, which is the front of the ship, and afterdeck, which is towards the back of the ship. And then the stern is the very tail end of the ship. So I want you to go to the link that is put in the description below, or you can scan the QR code, and this will take you to a little activity. It's a little match the following quiz that I have made for you. So you can take the quiz and try and match all the parts of the ship with their meaning. All right. And lastly, we are going to have a little bit of homework. It's a very simple homework, students. We have learned some very interesting new phrases in this paragraph. And I want you to write other situations in which these sentences can be used. For example, what a chase, right? So what a chase is one of the sentences that we learned in this paragraph. So I want you to identify other places, another sentence where it can be used. All right. Second one is the hour of battle had sounded. And the third one is this was our chance. So I want you to write just one more sentence that will give a situation in which these sentences can be used. For example, the boy from the opposing team kicked the football in the air and we all ran after it. What a chase. All right, so that's an example. Now, of course, you can't use the sentence that I just made, but try to come up with other sentences that use these phrases. All right, students, that's all for today. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that we learned something today. And if you have any questions, please write them down. All right. Bye, students.